Hello, welcome to Miss Peepers Reading Corner. I'm Katrina, aka Miss Peepers. Let's talk about orphans. Today we're talking about a series of unfortunate events by Lemony Snicket. This is a lot of books, y'all. I'm not quite dedicated enough to hold that whole stack through this entire video, so I'll just hold the first one. If you don't know, A Series of Unfortunate Events is a series of 13 books, this massive stack here. They're chapter books, they are prose, but they're definitely written for a younger audience. That said, they have a lot of appeal to adults as well, and not just adults who grew up with it. I missed these. I'm a little older than the folks who grew up with these books. I only read them actually recently, and I adore them. But let me tell you what they're about. We're following three children, Violet, Klaus, and Sunny Baudelaire. They are siblings. And in the first book, a banker named Mr. Poe approaches them and tells them that their parents have perished in a fire at their home, and that as the executor and the trustee of their parents' estate, which contains a very large fortune, he has found a suitable guardian for them to live with. And so they go and they are placed with a man named Count Olaf, who is neither suitable nor really a guardian. What he wants is the children's fortune. And from this bad beginning, they bounce from guardian to guardian. Some guardians are kind, some guardians are not. They're all somewhat incompetent. And throughout all of this, the children learn that their parents' lives were so much more mysterious than they had any idea. Their parents were involved in a secret organization and had enemies and friends that the children have never heard about. And so they start pursuing this mystery as well. So why have these books been challenged and banned? Well, there are instances of children in danger. There are moments of moral grayness. The children are often disrespectful towards adults after those adults are disrespectful towards them. And these books are just filled with general adult incompetence. One thing that I find when it comes to the banning of children's books or books targeted towards young people, a lot of adults are really threatened by this idea that a child may question them. And let me tell you, adults who feel that way about children also feel that way about people they work with, people who work for them. I've worked for people like this. I've worked with people like this. It just never stops. The insecurity that comes from thinking that a child should never think for themselves. You don't suddenly develop a sense of self when you reach the age of majority. Part of growing up is learning to push boundaries, learning to ask questions, learning how to figure things out on your own. And sometimes that means figuring out that some adults in your life are not good for you, that they don't have their best interests at heart. And that is something that you see in this book. We also see instances where some adults do actually have the children's best interests at heart, but either they are powerless in some way or they believe that they are, and that gets in their way of actually helping the children appropriately. That is real life, y'all. Not everyone is good at caring for children. It's a simple truth. And some adults want to hurt children. And that's just a fact of life, unfortunately. So if we teach children that adults are always to be respected no matter what, to be obeyed no matter what, to be unquestioned no matter what, you're actually setting those children up potentially to get into some dangerous situations. And I would hasten to point out that the children in this book are actually always polite, at least at the start. And it isn't actually until pretty far into the series that they start to be disrespectful towards Count Olaf even, who is the villain throughout all of these books. He pursues them through the entire series because he's trying to steal their fortune. And it's not really till the second half that they start saying things that I would consider disrespectful, but you know what? He hasn't earned their respect. Quite the opposite. And that's part of the point. And finally, I will say it is also not disrespectful to ask questions or to want to know more about someone's thought process when you don't initially agree with them or when you don't understand where they're coming from. Again, there are a lot of adults who feel that their authority should never be questioned, and I think that's often because they don't really feel secure in it. That's a theme of censorship generally. Books scare certain people. Ideas scare certain people. And thus we get to the final section of this video. Why do I think you should read these books? These are intelligent, they are witty, they are funny. Throughout these books, Lemony Snicket, whose real name is Daniel Handler, he pushes this idea of education, of gathering knowledge, of knowledge actually being powerful. The children are quite intelligent and are all skilled in different ways, and that helps them deal with situations that they could never have imagined they would need to be prepared for. There are so many references throughout all of these books to popular culture, to literature, to music, to poetry, to all sorts of things. I'm certain that I did not catch them all, and I wouldn't expect a child to catch them all either. But that's one of the beautiful things about a series like this, that a parent can read this with their child and everyone gets something out of it. It has layers. And I also really love the moral grayness throughout this, that there isn't one right answer. There's not one right path that the characters should be following, that our protagonists are expected to follow. Because there's not one right path in life. There's no one perfect way to be a human, to be a contributing member of society. And that really comes through here, where the children sometimes make decisions that aren't entirely moral, and they wrestle with that. They wrestle with being stuck in a position where they feel they don't have any good choices, but they have to do something. And so they do something, and then they have to live with that. And that's a really important lesson for people of all ages, honestly, to learn, that you can be a good person and still make mistakes. You can be flawed and still be noble. That's a huge message in these books. Now, I do have some criticisms of the series as well. There's no such thing as a perfect book. I do think that Handler could have done a better job with Count Olaf's henchpeople. They are very much caricatures. They don't have names, which I don't think is in and of itself a problem, but Olaf and his henchpeople all have physical characteristics that are shortcuts to showing that they are evil. They're all different in some way. And I think that could have been handled better. Book number 9, The Carnivorous Carnival, is set in a carnival. And the primary acts within the carnival are what Snicket refers to as a freak show, which I'm going to put in air quotes because that is how he phrases it. While there is some discussion in that book about how you can be different and still do something with your life other than working in a carnival, I did have a problem with Handler, who is very focused on words. There's a lot of intellectual discussion that he never questions the word freak to describe someone who is different in some way, disabled. That's a big problem to me. I think there is a way to handle that is appropriate to his target age group, to children, that doesn't just slide past that. I don't think it was malicious on his part. I think it was an unconscious bias. That's my guess from what I can tell. But it's one of those things that jumped out to me. But that would be a good discussion topic with your child if you choose to read this with them. There are also books outside of this series that take place in the world of A Series of Unfortunate Events. Books about Lemony Snicket himself, who is a character in the books as well as the author. Again, it's a pen name. And there are books about some of the adult characters who don't get as much airtime in this series because it is very focused on the 3 children. I haven't read all of that material. I actually am interested in doing that. And I think a lot of it informed the adaptation that that Netflix made of this series, starring Neil Patrick Harris as Count Olaf, and with a lot of really great actors, comedic actors especially, throughout the series. They brought in a lot of that extra material that I think fleshed out the story a bit. For me, reading it as an adult, yes, I'm interested in the children's stories, but they learn little bits and pieces about their parents and their parents' friends that don't quite get resolved. There are some hanging plot lines, which I think is intentional because children don't know everything about what happens in their parents' lives, especially after their parents pass and you can't ask them anymore. So you have to put the pieces together based on what's left behind. In fact, in the final book, Count Olaf has an opportunity to share information about himself and where he's coming from, and kind of do that end of book, end of series villain speech. And he declines to do so. And the children never learn what he knows about their parents, about what caused the rift between their parents and other adults in this secret society. He has a lot of information because he was there, and he just doesn't share any of it. We see more of it in the adaptation, in the series adaptation, that is. There's a movie as well, which this might be controversial amongst fans of the series, but I did not like the movie. I thought it was really, I just thought it was not good, quite frankly. The Netflix adaptation is much better. But anyway, we get more of that story that I think comes from those other materials, which may or may not be interesting to a younger audience. I don't know. Maybe those are the sorts of things you care more about when you get older, because you're thinking about the lives of the adults as well as the lives of the children, whereas probably as a child, you're more focused on what's happening with our trio. This is a charming series. I'm so glad that I read it and that I can recommend it to all of you. I'm sure y'all know by this point, just the fact that I'm making videos about banned books, that I hate book banning. This is one of those that just, kids can handle it. Kids are stronger than you think, and kids run into bad things in their real lives. Seeing certain things fictionalized in an age-appropriate way, and even in a somewhat humorous way, is actually not a bad thing. It can help children process. It can help children understand the world better. Let me know if you've read A Series of Unfortunate Events. Did you grow up with it? Did you read it later in life like I did? Did your children grow up with it, perhaps? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this series. And whatever you do, keep reading, especially banned books. And I'll see you in the next one.